Hello, everybody. I wanted to go ahead and introduce myself. Today is actually a very exciting day. We're actually doing our podcast number 5 officially. We've shot an additional 2, but we've done it at our studio. Once again, I mentioned today's a very exciting day. I wanted to go ahead and introduce this very bright looking girl. Big things coming her way. Her name is Victoria. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself, Victoria?
Of course, I will do that. Hi, my name is Victoria. I have a controversial page on Instagram. If you don't know me yet, now you do. So, hello there. And I am a public speaker in the making. I'm very excited to be with you today, author, talking about entertainment and your experience in that industry. So,
Absolutely. Actually, big things coming up at Klerifai. We most likely will be launching, I believe, in the next couple of months. But a lot of things are actually starting to connect. Of course, with elevating the quality of our content. We're actually going to start shooting more agency and brand models, of course. A lot of people also at Klerifai, people that follow us, for some reason they assume that we actually only work with models, especially mainstream or fashion models. And actually, that's not true. We actually work with even OnlyFans models as a whole. When I say we work with, I'm talking about we shoot, but we don't shoot the sexy content. When I say we work with them, kind of like on the consultation, because a lot of talent on the OnlyFans side, they actually want to also pursue mainstream. So most likely they have to do it kind of like on the influencer side. So that's how we work with them. As far as like the actual agency management on the whole glamour, we don't deal with that at all. We don't deal with anything on kind of like explicit content and things of that nature. But as far as like actual talent, we also work with pretty much all types of talent and artists. In this case, influencers, curve models, hand models, face models, public speakers, entrepreneurs, you name it, we all work with them. The thing is, Klerifai is gonna actually open doors, and we're gonna actually offer a lot of tools that's actually a lot for industry professionals. Of course, we're starting off, of course, in the entertainment industry. And then we actually, once we reach a certain plateau, we're gonna go ahead and open the doors and put it across the board in every industry, probably real estate, public speaking, gurus, mentors, you name it, things in that nature. Um, Victoria, what can actually, you mentioned your page. What things, so actually, let's start off with how did we actually meet and what have we done so far and what do you think clarifies so far?
absolutely. So, author, I remember I think somebody on your team or maybe you yourself reached out to me via Instagram. And it was mainly for a photo shoot. That was the impression I was under. So that's how we initially connected. So we had that photo shoot, and I think that's where we learned a lot about each other. I think I had a completely different impression about who I was going to be meeting. Definitely one of the biggest things that I learned, not just about modeling in general, but about working with photographers is that the professional ones, such as your team, they do it completely different. That was the first sort of real photo shoot I had. And also, of course, it was really interesting to hear about how you did everything that you were doing and how what your plans were for me as well. I mean, I was, again, under the impression that it was just going to be a photo shoot. We were never going to speak again. But obviously, that's not the case right now. So, but yeah, that was my first impression of Klerifai. And it was a good impression.
Okay. It's actually funny because to answer your question, who actually hit you up? Actually, most of the time it's somebody within my team. Normally, how they actually either send inquiries or we get the inquiries. And upon when it normally goes into confirmation, that's actually when I step in, kind of like, 'cause at the end of the day, I have to give the green light who we actually shoot with. In your case, actually, with me personally, because I actually found you, actually, I wasn't even aware about your modeling page, even though you have very limited, only like 5 or 7 pictures there. I actually found you on, you could say, your controversial page.
I mean, I think that's how a lot of people greet me at first. So,
I
yeah.
find you on your controversial page, and I'm like, normally, not only in the entertainment industry, but specifically in the entertainment industry and in business in general,
Yep.
certain people have what we call this, we talked about that day when we met, that it factor. Kind of like when you're talking, you're either going to have command or you're going to set a presence where people are either going to be asking, who is that person and what are they all about? Normally, you have kind of like a charisma of kind of like having command. It could either be good or bad, but as long as you have command, you could use it to your advantage. Some people use their it factor and command for the wrong reasons. We could go into different subjects. I'm sure we are, especially if we continue to do more podcasts. There are certain people that use it for the wrong reasons, but as long as you have command and that it factor, you could pretty much take your public image pretty much to the next level, and the sky's the limit. So kind of like when I met you, even though we did a photo shoot and you still didn't know, even though we did the photo shoot like what, an hour and a half. Towards the end, that's actually when I brought up the conversation of actually how I came across you, and actually the plans that I wanted to do work with you. In this case, kind of like on the public speaking, entrepreneurial. And one of the things that I have in mind with her, hopefully she sticks around and we don't scare her off, is on the podcast. We're going to be interviewing a lot of models, very periodically, starting off, of course. And then, of course, we're going to jump into different industries, kind of like public speakers, entrepreneurs, mentors. Right now, it's actually going to be a very interesting topic, especially with AI. AI could be very good and bad. Most of it is actually going to be bad. And the reason I say that is because a lot of people are going to fall into the traps. It's already started, and it's only going to get worse. Meaning that a lot of people are going to be using it for the wrong reasons, and a lot of people could be getting in trouble or falling for entrapments, scams, in many bad situations. So you have to pretty much have to be either alert or how to, in this case, how to ask the right questions to prevent certain situations to the way the industry and the world is evolving. Of course, it could be great in a lot of things, which is actually what, of course, AI is being built, but it's actually going to be very bad for the people that actually use it for the wrong reasons. So where we come in and at Klerifai, actually one of the tools is going to be specifically that. We want to take it to the next generation where we actually go ahead and give people tools on vetting people, screening people in different industries to the point where they know exactly who they are, knowing what questions to ask. Sure, there's a lot of pages out there so far, mainly on different industries, mostly like on food, of course. You have Yelp. You have, what's the other one? Trust Point or something like that?
The other food review?
No, there's another one kind of like for reviews in general for business and things like that. I believe it's TrustView or Trust Point or something like that. So there's different ones out there, but there's not one specifically for our industry. And then, of course, kind of like the vision that I personally have, what I actually plan to take Klerifai to the next level in this case is kind of like our 3 vision cores, which is actually transparency, professionalism, and legitimacy.
I remember you told me those 3 things.
Exactly. So a lot of the models, especially right now, we're working with one very major model, and of course she's going to be working a lot specifically with the models. Those are the 3 core visions that we actually want to make Klerifai 100% what we believe in. And when you actually work not only with people in the entertainment industry, with industry professionals, if you have those 3 key visions, you're going to run straight to the point where you're going to elevate and maximize your full potential, and also save a lot of headaches about either getting scammed for money, harassment, very bad situations where you could actually get into. It's kind of like in any industry, you want to elevate and maximize your opportunities going straight. There's a lot of distractions and a lot of people scamming in different industries. So you want to prevent those. So at Klerifai, that's actually one of the major tools that we're actually going to go ahead and emphasize. So in your case, like we mentioned, public speaking, entrepreneurial. So we're just going to bring you into our industry and our world, being that you're kind of like green, meaning that you don't know much of it. So in my case, I consider myself, hopefully, I become one of your mentors. And you're very young. How old are you?
19.
19. So for you, you have that it factor. It's like your brain is kind of like a sponge right now. My job and the plans that I have with you is kind of like to mentor you on how the industry works. And you have that quick energy and you're looking to work. You know what I mean? People, it's all about your work ethic. If you want to learn, you learn the right way with the right mentors, and you could pretty much elevate in any industry, and you could use it for different in business and things like that. So besides on the public speaking and also on the controversial, where you kind of like, I believe you talk about politics and different situations like that, would you say would be your top three things on industries that you actually most likely want to talk about within yourself besides Klerifai?
As in, like, the
Kinda
industries
like
I would want to dip my feet in and stuff
exactly.
like that. Oh, let's see. So obviously we have public speaking. Anything to do with just being on a stage helping others. Very recently, you know, I've gotten way closer to God. He's one of the reasons. He is the reason, I believe, why I have the platform I do today and I'm able to sit where I am right now. You know, my coming up was not very easy. It was a lot of ups and downs, a lot of not quite a stable home life that I had. But that's part of the reason why I want to motivate others. So in that sense, I'd also like to be a motivational speaker if we're still in that public speaking realm. And I think all in all, I mean, everyone's goal is to be rich, right? So that's
Correct.
obviously one of my goals. I want to be rich. I want to have like a nice car, Rolls Royce, stuff like that. But that's definitely
That's a good thing. Ambition, very good. Good if you actually pursue it as you want to leave. You want to do it for the right reasons. Of course, money very important. But if you do it specifically only for money, it's normally you will be held back because that's the first thing you're thinking about. If you're trying to elevate and help others within your industry, it's just gonna flow and money will come to you. Of
That's
course.
exactly what
Yeah.
I've heard so many people that are successful like you. They said the exact same thing.
Yeah.
You know, they said, what was it? It was, it's easy to be rich. It's hard to be wealthy. And I think that kind of falls into the same like category of what you just said, because you know, I can go start an OnlyFans, right? And then make all that money. But some people, you know, not to judge the people who do have OnlyFans, let me put that out there. But, you know, I would never personally do that. It's goes against some of my religious views. But if I were to do that, I'd probably make a lot of money. If I were to switch my page to OnlyFans tomorrow, I'd probably have at least a couple hundred subscribed.
Oh yeah.
So, but that's what you call rich. Wealth is a totally different thing, I believe. I think it's a mix of wisdom. It's a mix of experience and, you know, the ability to go out and profit off of your skill set. So, yeah, that's what I think the difference is. But like what you said, when you do what you are best at doing and you really love doing it, that's when the money comes through.
Correct.
I believe.
What
exactly
do you
like that.
believe? One key specific topic, which actually I preach and emphasize a lot, especially on the new girls and even male talent, especially when they're like 16, 18, barely like new to the industry. What do you believe in mentors?
What do I believe in mentors?
Mentors.
As in how I should believe they should.
What do you see the value in them? Do you believe they're beneficial and a value to growing and maximizing your potential, or do you look at it kind of like old conventional? School is the way to do it. Get a high salary job, go to school, get a degree, and then buy a house, have kids, build a family, and things like that? Or do you believe that you could actually build a career with mentors and having the right mentors, of course?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mentorship is the way to go. I think it's one of the only ways to go. You know, they're the people who are going to give you the actual wisdom because they have experience in what you don't. They're going to get you through doors that you couldn't get through by yourself. I truly believe that if you have a mentor, you can get far ahead of others trying to go to school, trying to do it the old way. I understand that a degree is one thing, but experience or being with someone who has the experience in the field that you want to succeed in, that's a completely different thing. And I personally, I never finished high school, right? But due to circumstances, but I figured and I found, you know, with my social media and with the people I've met, I have done so much more during the time I was supposed to be finishing school than ever when I was in school. So I would definitely agree that mentorship is very important if you want to be something big, whether you want to be a athlete, if you want to be a public speaker like me, content creation, even business like yours, a mentorship is very, very important because it's going to get you the other 80% of the way where you yourself can only get 20.
It's a very good topic and very good for the people that actually believe in mentors. There's a lot of people that believe mentors are scams. And yes, that is true when I say bad. The reason it gets actually very controversial, I look at, always give an analogy with YouTube. Just like people say, we don't need to go to college, we could get an education on YouTube. And actually the answer to that is yes. But you have to be very careful. And what I mean by that is YouTube has the right mentors, pretty much, I would say, to anything. Doesn't matter what industry. The bad thing about it is 90% of the people that are mentors and gurus on YouTube, and of course on Instagram and TikTok, that are selling either courses, mentorships, 90, probably even 95% are scams.
Absolutely.
So the hard part is finding that 5 or 10% that are legitimate. So the reason it gets a very controversial and a bad rap negativity that mentors are a scam, they shouldn't be charging you to mentor you. If you're a true mentor, you should be doing it for free. Yes and no. Normally, a lot of mentors, a lot of times they actually give a lot of value for free. But a lot of times, the mentors, normally a mentor, to be an official mentor, you have to be an expert at whatever you are trying to mentor other people to do. And most mentors that are, especially the new ones, they don't even have experience or have actually sacrificed to doing whatever profession they're trying to give advice to. There's a lot of great speakers, especially very young ones, that they pick up certain situations, in this case, how to sell, and they're very good at talking, so the new generation are very gullible, and they're like, oh, he's great because he's showing the lifestyle, the cars, the travel, the girls, and the new generation gets taken advantage for a lot of money, a lot of these courses, and they're like, those are the ones that give the name a bad rap, which is in that 90%. That other 5 and 10% that are actually legit is the hard part. The reason it's hard is because people don't know who they are. They have to navigate through all the bad ones, which is 90% of them, and they're gonna most likely either go through sacrifices of being taken advantage of money or going to a lot of events where they're being pitched at for sign up for this, sign up for that, and if you don't, and things like that. So if you lose $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 before you know it, and you haven't gotten any value out of it or any execution results, you're gonna look at it like mentors are scams. And in my case, in my 20s, my mentor, you could say, and my role model was my mother. My mother of course, she came as an immigrant, but she didn't have, I had 2 brothers, 2 sisters, and made a business from working very hard, 60, 70 hours per week to put food on the table for us, of course. And then, of course, she ended, of course, sooner than later, having her own retail locations. And she had at one point, she had multiple, like 3 or 4, but never multiple at the same time. At one time, she only had 2. But being that she didn't have English, her speaking language, she was kind of like limited. So she kind of like maxed her full potential to the most that she could do. As far as like corporate, the way people take it to the next level, especially back then, social media wasn't out there at all. So she reached a high potential success for the experience and the knowledge that she had, but her was more of work hard and not like the typical now how it is, work smarter and instead of working harder. You know what I mean? So now with mentors, me growing up, I looked up to her and she helped me out a lot on the sales aspect, because you could reach the limit of course in sales, make a lot of money, and you make more money the more you work and the more you put in time and things of that nature. My regret that I would say, I wouldn't say really a regret, if I was to go back, I would say if I would have had a mentor in my 20s, I would have, and a legit one, it would have been that I would have been more careful on wasting time on distractions, hanging around with the wrong people, friends. I've had a lot of, you could say, great friends for the moment when I was growing up, but I was also lacking my full potential that I kind of like waste a lot of time on like save money, invest money, assets. And back then I was making good money when I was actually doing sales, but I lost it all. Make money, lose it. Make money, lose it. So technically what we say, you have nothing to show for it. You know what I mean? And then, of course, a lot of times I got burned out doing sales. So I went into a regular corporate 9-to-5 job, which actually sucks. I've done it multiple times for multiple reasons. Kind of like I was in a relationship where one of my exes, I've only had officially 2 girlfriends, I would say, officially when I say seriously.
That's good, though.
That's good.
That's good. Some people have like 30 or something. Yes, it's crazy. But that's good, yeah.
So one of them, when I actually met her, I was in the entertainment industry, and when we actually got together, she actually wasn't, I would say insecure, kind of like, yeah, I know what you do, I trust you, and things like that. And after 2 to 3 years, it started to change of kind of like, what are you doing? How come you're taking so long? And blah blah blah. So kind of like an ultimatum. So I sacrificed and I left the industry for 5 years. And what did I do? I went into a corporate 9 to 5 job. The first year, I'm like, okay, this ain't bad, because I was burned out from sales and also the entertainment industry, which is kind of like sales, being a talent management and things like that. It's selling. You're your own boss and you sell, negotiating contracts, submitting models to agencies or brands and things like that. So it's technically sales and marketing. So when I left the industry, I'm like, okay, the first year is not that bad. Second year, I'm like, it's actually a pain having to get up at 7 in the morning to be there at 8. You can't be there 3 to 5 minutes late. If you do, you're not gonna look good. So you go from being your own boss to now reporting to somebody. At the beginning, I actually got along with my immediate boss. And then after a year, he started to change, kind of like the typical corporate, do more, do more, do more. And I'm like, okay, I'll do more, but I also want to get compensated for it. And in sales, it was kind of like, let me make more commission. And if I was getting more, the commission that I actually deserved for doing the additional work, I would have easily made between $150,000 to $200,000, because I was doing technically the job of 3 people. Why? Because I was efficient on kind of how to do certain things more efficient. So I'm like, sure, I'll do them, but I want to get the compensation, because now that other person either quit or you got rid of, because now I'm doing the actual job task. And typical corporate, they were like, well, think about it. We'll let you know. And I'm like, okay, maybe the first time, second time, third time's a red flag.
Yeah.
And they did the protocol after the third time, we'll go ahead and have meetings and we'll let you know. And make a long story short, I did it for 3-4 years, got burned out, and I also got taken advantage. Typical, they're like, well, if you don't like it, we'll replace you, and the whole thing. Corporate America, that's normally the way it works. You're pretty much replaceable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how much of good work you do, and loyalty hardly happens. I'm not saying it does in most companies, but the majority of them, they don't.
No, not at all. It's like they got you working like dogs.
Correct.
So, I mean, what was the setting point, though, for you? Was there a moment where you're like, absolutely not, I'm not doing this anymore? Or was it just like a slowly, okay, I'm going to kind of like inch away from this, you know?
It was kind of like when they gave me the ultimatum, when that immediate boss, when he kind of like told me, he went from we were getting along great to kind of like, you either need to do it or you're going to get fired or you need to leave.
Wow, that's
And I'm
crazy.
like, well, I was doing all the work for 3 people. You didn't say that. But now that I'm giving you the ultimatum where I'm not getting the compensation and I don't want to do it, because technically you're only paying me for one position. So I'm like, well, I'm going to stop doing the other 2. They didn't like that. They kind of, corporate America, when you do that, they kind of look at it like insubordination. And I'm like, how is this insubordination where technically I'm doing my job only for the one that I'm getting paid for? Now that I'm not agreeing to do the other 2, how is that insubordination? It's not. I'm not failing to do or rejecting to do a position that I'm not getting paid for. It makes no sense. But corporate America, sooner or later, it's going to work that way. Companies are not, the majority of them are not loyal. You know what I mean? Unless you're in the corporate ladder. I'm talking about like board of directors or things like that where you have more
Unless
leverage.
you're one of the corrupt ones. That's a good way to say it. Yeah. It's really just like what I learned, you know, just being a young girl in LA, not even just coming back from around the world and stuff like that. I learned that it's here back in America, it's definitely like you either step on others or you get stepped on, you know, and that's kind of like the corporate ladder. That's how I see it. I mean, if you saw, there's so much corruption, there's so much abuse of power in those areas. If you saw that little Coldplay concert a couple months ago, that's the perfect example of abuse of power. So I can imagine you probably felt stuck, you know, but again, like how was coming out of that and trying to build what you have now? Because that couldn't have been easy at all.
Well, to finish off that story, when I kind of like, that one, it finished where technically I got fired, actually.
Oh.
I got fired, but I was going to still quit anyways. But technically I got fired, and I also did a mistake where I could have sued the company for a lot of money, but I didn't do it. I haven't never been that type of person to be like, oh, I'm going to sue you, which a lot of people nowadays make it a habit of trying to sue a company or anything they do. They're like, I'm going to sue you and blah, blah, blah. I wasn't raised that way. Could I have done it? Yes, of course. But technically, I just left. And when I left, I kind of like, of course, you need to make money, especially now that I'm actually living with that girlfriend that I had. Bills don't stop. Unemployment, it's worthless here in California. You only get paid pennies to a dollar. So I went back into the entertainment industry. Once again, very important topic and thing I'm about to say next. The entertainment industry, a lot of people thinks it's great because of the results that most of the people see, especially now with social media. Most people want to get into the entertainment industry for technically three things. Do you happen to know what those things are?
Well, I think one of them's money, right? That's got to be one of them. Money, fame, and power, I'm guessing.
I wouldn't say fame. It's pretty much, you could say money is one of them.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Lifestyle is the second one because it's the travel, the restaurants. And then for both male and girls, for the males, they want the pretty girls.
Oh, I remember you told me about this when we did that photo shoot. Yeah.
And then for the girls, they want to date the hot guys, the celebrities, and things like that. Those are normally the top three things that people want to get into the entertainment industry. But most people don't know that it actually has very negative and dark sides of the industry, which is actually could be very cutthroat. That's the reason when I left the industry, that time that I mentioned, and I got into corporate, I've always been a person that has never been money hungry. Sure, money is great, but I was born and raised in a neighborhood which is like South Central, then even Watts, which is actually two of the worst neighborhoods in California. So I was born with nothing. So for me, having money and losing money, it's really, I could adjust very easily. So the entertainment industry, when I left it, I lost money potential. But I didn't hold back and kind of like regretted it because the dark side of the industry, politics, dark side, a lot of things that pretty much very dark side stories that you could pretty much talk about that if we were to talk about it, this whole podcast would pretty much blow up like me and you have talked about it.
If they don't take it down, of course.
But, or take it down. But very controversial topics, what we call the entertainment industry, the dark side. Most people don't see that. So when you leave the entertainment industry and you kind of like don't agree on a lot of point of those views, and in my case, when I left it, I'm like, okay, at least I don't have to deal with that part of the industry, which is kind of like it releases tension of kind of like the stress behind it. People don't see that on social media because social media only shows the travel, the luxury, the girls, the guys, and the money. So pretty much everything everybody wants part of, but they don't see kind of like talent flaking, talent wanting entitlement, I want this. And if they don't get certain things, especially now with social media, it could be bad because everybody now with a cell phone, they could pretty much go on rants. And there's always two sides of the story. Most of the time, people that go on rants, their following is always going to agree with them. And they don't believe in kind of like hearing both sides to the story. You know what I mean? So if you're following, you say go on a rant, you're going to get negativity over certain things. So social media nowadays could either make you or break you. So you actually have to be now in the entertainment industry very careful on who you work with, what do you say, a lot of different variety of different things. So it's kind of like you have to be in the middle, even a lot of times where you don't agree with certain things. That's where politics comes into things. So a lot of times, do I want to do certain things or do I want to work with other people? Yes. But a lot of times you could actually be very limited regardless whether you agree with it or not. And sometimes that's actually where it holds you back because you're like, I don't agree with those point of views. But it's better, the best you could do is pretty much not say anything. Because a lot of times, especially now with politics, technically we have three. We have the red, the blue, and then the middle.
Yeah.
So especially here in California, technically now in the whole United States, you kind of like have to be in the middle, especially on corporate and branding, because if you go by one side or the other, you're going to get a lot of negativity and a lot of hate. And now on comments to social media, a lot of haters. Sure, haters are good because they're going to grow and enhance your engagement and make a lot of your content go viral. But if it's actually negative in politics, negativity, that could actually also impact and hurt your branding.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of like have damage control on it. Sure, I'm not saying everybody has freedom of speech. Of course, that's a great thing. United States has great on that, but there's a lot of times people that want freedom of speech, but when you actually say certain things, they're like, you shouldn't say that. I'm like, well, you can't have it both ways. Either you have it or you don't. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, I think there's a lot of hypocrisy. That's one thing I talk about a lot on my page. So, for example, I mean, I feel like I'm the perfect example of everything you're describing right now. So I feel kind of called out. But on my page, I get tons of hate from all sides because I really don't pick and choose. And I think that's what a lot of people do not like. I think more than anyone, people, there could be the right, there could be the left. But if you're not choosing sides or you call out both sides, you're like hated by everyone. But I also understand that, you working in the entertainment business, if you're working with models, I mean, models can basically have no opinions because then the brands don't want to work with you. If you say something about a certain person or if you admit to being a different side on politics than they are, I mean, they won't want to work with you. So I bet you definitely know how detrimental saying something that could provoke controversy can be working in your industry. And I mean, was there any time that you experienced that, like realized that you couldn't have, you couldn't speak your mind, or was there someone you were working with that was like, oh,
I'll give you an analogy, kind of like not exactly on the political, actually a partially political, and I would say more on the dark side of the entertainment industry. I've had a lot of success working with a lot of people, in this case, even celebrities, just because I don't post it or say, especially now, because most people in the entertainment industry, now it's all about cloud. They like to brag who they work with, what do they have, what do they drive, where do they travel. I was born, like I mentioned, born and raised not showing off. So a lot of the people that I started when I started working in the early 2000s with celebrities, even though it was kind of like B-level celebrities, and I also got to work on a lot of sets of A-level celebrities. But back then, you didn't have social media where you could actually just shoot the content and post it. It was the MySpace era and all that, and MySpace was super slow back in the day. So do I have credits and pictures with some celebrities? Of course. But it was never to the point where I was like showing off, look who I work with and look who I represented or managed and things of that nature. So a lot of people are kind of like, oh, he's a brand new entity. I'm like, yes, Klerifai is new, but I had another two companies, of course, that were actually more branded and more known. Now it's a whole new different entity. So we're connecting from the connections that we have there to Klerifai. So to answer everybody that assumes or thinks Klerifai, or in my case, I'm new to the industry, I'm not. I have 15 plus years, work with a lot of people. So anyways, back to the topic of politics or controversial. I could be in a whole different level of success, both financially and also on the toys, the gadgets, the lifestyle, if I was to work either with certain people or do certain things in the industry that, in my personal case, I don't agree with. So what does that mean? People either with leverage, power, connections, that they pretty much be like, we'll give you all this if you do certain things. Kind of like, once again, it's pretty much politics. And a lot of those things, a lot of times jump into the dark side. I'll give you one simple one where I don't want to get too much thorough, but I'll give you an example of one of the many. In case for the few followers that don't know my history, I've done talent management for 15 plus years, and I've also done a lot of models and photographers events. I started, of course, the first one in 2012. I was actually one of three that was actually doing them back then. Very big and successful. Nowadays, you see like anybody and everybody trying to do them for the wrong reasons. But back then, the reason I was very successful very quickly was because I had access to the connections on the models because of the agency, and I had the connections because of the mansions. Many people are going to say, mansions, what is that connection? Back 12 years ago, 13 years ago, there wasn't Peerspace, didn't exist. Airbnb didn't exist. So if you actually had a connection to a mansion, it was only going to normally either be 2 or 3 ways. Either you had deep pockets, you were a millionaire, or you were most likely a friend of somebody that had a mansion. And in my case, I didn't have none of the two. In my case, my leverage was the entertainment industry, models, And it happened to be that I was working a lot with people that were executives or producers or directors, presidents of companies or owners of companies. So a lot of times they actually be like, either they gave me a rate or they told me, oh, I want to mingle with models and things of that nature. So my very first event in 2012, the first mansion that we actually did, we had 42 models, actually no, 42 photographers and 22 models.
Wow.
Which was very big and at a mansion. Nowadays, pretty much anybody could pretty much do a mansion event because they could just go to Airbnb and book it for like $800 or $1,000. Back then, it was like $10,000 just to book a mansion.
So are these like parties or something like that, or
My events? No, my events were pretty much photographers looking to enhance and maximize their portfolios to elevate them. So I provided the models, I provided the mansion. It was all structured.
Okay.
So I provided normally models that they couldn't book, better models than normally an average looking girl, and then of course a high quality fancy mansion, food, and everything was structured. Models made money, models got content, photographers elevated their portfolios, and things of that nature. So everything was structured. And that's what I mean on saying we did it as a profession and we did it for the right reasons. Most people nowadays, when they do an event, they do it for the wrong reasons. And what I mean by that is most of the time, people actually want to mingle with the models, party.
Yeah.
So the reason they're not successful is because normally when you're trying to do it for that, especially now with social media, people are going to be like, oh, the host tried to get with me. They try to liquor me up and things like that. So I could go, that's a whole different subject that could be kind of like what I mentioned on the dark side. And that's the reason most people aren't successful, because now people do a bunch of events, but they do it for those reasons and many other bad reasons. And normally they only do it like once or twice. And before you know it, they either get a bad rap or models could pretty much read between the lines of like, this is not really a profession. You're just trying to party with us. So that's actually, anyways, back to the topic on the mansions. When we actually started progressing after we did 3 events per year and then 5 or things like that, people were looking up like, oh, who's this guy and who's this company? So because we got a major traction, especially I was only one of 3 doing them at that high caliber. So what happened there? This is where we actually got the perks. And we got a lot of bachelors. And when we say bachelors, I'm talking about either married or single athletes, especially around that time. It's actually when contracts for a lot of these professional athletes that were making $3-5 million per year. Of course, now they're at 20-30 mil. It's a whole different thing. But back then, a lot of money was at $3-5 million per year, so they could easily go ahead and buy a mansion. So they were like, use my mansion for free or for pennies to a dollar. But there's always a catch. I'm like, who's going to use my mansion just for the heck of it?
Yep.
Normally, when you book a mansion, especially mansions are very expensive to maintain. Just a cleaning fee. Today, we're at a small studio, and every little thing from small to big has a cleaning fee. Cleaning fee could be hundreds to thousands of dollars, especially the bigger the mansion, the more it's going to cost to clean up. So why is somebody that owns the property going to be like, oh, go ahead and use my mansion for free? So technically, I have connections to use pretty much nowadays, especially $10, $20, $50, $1 million mansions, which those mansions, if you clean it up, it's going to take just probably like a couple of grand just to clean it up. Why? Because everything's like marble, spanking clean, flawless. So everything comes with a catch. And in this case, models. So pretty much it was, once again, on things that, point of views that I don't agree on. So a lot of times I lost opportunities. Because if I don't agree on kind of like go ahead and mingle with the models, at the end of the day, I'm going to take the bad rap because I'm allowing certain things to happen at my event that I don't agree with. So what happens there? A lot of those opportunities on people offering me things, they're going to close the doors at me because I don't agree with certain things. Does that make sense?
Wait, so these people would ask you to mingle with the models? They would ask you to like do stuff with the models? Is that it?
Yes. And
Oh,
kind of
that's
like
crazy.
and kind of like turn away and act like you don't know what happened and things like that. I'm like, if something bad happens, pretty much it's my brand that's gonna pretty much take the hit. You know what I mean? So that's where you get a lot of things on certain opportunities, and that's just like one of many. You know what I mean? The entertainment industry has a lot of perks, but certain things you stay away from. A lot of times, other people they actually go ahead and do them, and that's the reason this entertainment industry is very cutthroat. people only see the lifestyle and the results. But sometimes that's where you see, actually, that's a very delicate topic I don't want to mention, but it could be a lot of time stressful
Yeah.
because it could be, what's a certain specific word? Sometimes when you're alone, it kind of like it could haunt you.
Oh.
Does that make sense? Unless you are like cutthroat and have no remorse on kind of like what we say, F the world and it's all about me. If you think like that, which is the majority of the people that are successful in the entertainment industry, the majority, especially the successful ones, they are like that. They just don't show it, of course, because of PR images. But you have to be like that in order to succeed. I am like that in a way, but not to that extreme, which is once again the reason I'm talking about this topic. If I was cutthroat to the max, I would be at so much progression and success if I was kind of like, I don't care what happens as long as I'm succeeding. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So most people don't know that. I mean, they see it a little bit now with other celebrities and many other things that happen. I don't want to go too detail on it. I mean, that once again is a little bit too controversial for it. I mean, maybe you'll go into it. But you kind of like already see kind of like where I'm getting at.
Yeah.
There's certain things that at least now it's being exposed a little bit more and further things like that. And if you see those people that are like getting in bad situations, they are very successful.
Yeah.
But that's the catch of the reason they were successful, because now they're actually got caught and they're paying the price. The ones that actually aren't caught, you could say it's kind of like so far they've been lucky, but they've also are very thick skinned of kind of like, it's me, and I don't care about anybody else as long as I reach the success and the max potential of my business, or in my case, as an industry professional. So that's the reason I kind of like, sure, I've had success in the entertainment industry. Could I have more if I were to do certain things that I don't agree with? Very much. But those are whole different topics.
Yeah.
And for you, that's a whole that's actually completely new, because you're completely new to the industry. And if we continue to work with each other, and I mentor you on different things, you'll start seeing that. But what I always believe and preach is like, talk is cheap, because a lot of times when you talk about these topics, a lot of times people, they're like, I don't believe it, or maybe it's not like that until they actually see it. And normally when if you're in the entertainment industry and you're working with major people, you see it quickly. And then it starts to connect and validate on everything that I'm saying. Because a lot of times people say, they're like, that's not true, and things like that. I'm like, well, now you see it. You get what I mean? And for the general audience, a lot of times that's normally where you get a lot of the hates and the comments on saying that's not how it works. And this other person's like that. I'm like, a lot of people on the front side that are on the public image, either by actors, models, celebrities, I would say probably like around 20 to 30% are officially actually genuine, meaning the person they portray. The other 70%, 70 or 80, they portray certain ways. In this case, what I mean by that is they are nice. They will give the interview. Why? Because it's pretty much PR branding. They have public relations, they have managers, they have lawyers, everything kind of like by the book, that they have to present themselves humble. Why? Because it's their brand on the line. Are they really like that? No. Will the general people know that? Of course not. The only way they'll know is if you're in the entertainment industry in the inner circle.
You know, that's the funniest thing, because I was talking about this with a friend the other day. I said that I noticed, especially, I mean, I just know a little bit about social media. You definitely can confirm this in terms of working in your industry, but I noticed that the people who behave the nicest in front of the camera are the worst. Like, I've met a couple of influencers, or just ran into a few, who were these great people, or I thought were these great people, loved by each and every person that came across their page. Most of these people were the nastiest people I've ever met. Whereas a lot of the influencers that are disliked by, at least half of the internet, they're the most genuine. I mean, I've met one of them, and they're the most genuine people that you'll ever meet. So it's very, very strange how that works. I don't know if you've ever experienced anything like that. But
How did you become aware that those people, the ones that specifically the ones you're talking about, were negative? Did you saw it by on your own eyes that they were actually the opposite, or you heard about it through somebody?
so actually, I was in Brandy Melville and I was shopping. I saw one of my influencers. I used to watch her for the longest time. I don't know. I don't know if I should throw her name under the bus, but she was famous on TikTok. She did a lot of what I eat in a days and everything. So she was kind of that fitness influencer, loved by each and every one of her followers. Never came across a single hate comment on her page. The way she treated the employees there, I mean, it's Brandy Melville, so if you're a girl, you'll get this. Everyone there is kind of pushy, but she was very dismissive to the employee. You know, the employee seemed visibly upset, demanding, like, where's this? Where's this? It was really, I didn't even know if it was her. That was the thing, because I was just like, it didn't seem like she would do this type of thing. So that was just one example. Another example is when I personally went up to meet one and tried to get a photo with them. They wanted nothing to do with it. You know, and I understand as a influencer, you don't want to be constantly in front of the camera, but the way they dismissed that one as well was just extremely rude. This one was a different influencer of the same kind, though, still under that fitness industry sort of realm. And I don't know, maybe it's just the thing with the gym girlies. I'm not sure. Maybe it's just maybe they don't eat enough or whatever, not enough protein. But yeah, it's just most of the people that I met that seemed the sweetest were just very rude, brash to either myself or other people that were in that room.
Yeah.
So
now you can see it more because of social media. Once again, we don't want to go ahead and oust people's names. I'm sure people connected with either Googling, but there was this big celebrity from the 90s, early 2000s. She had a big show, and of course, she pretty much technically got canceled because even myself, even me in the entertainment industry, probably because I never personally worked with her, but all these 20 plus years, I always thought she actually was one of the very humble people, because that's the way she portrays herself on the camera. And then her employers ousted her and pretty much they canceled her. So people that actually work with her, they already knew what she was all about, but they never said anything. So now she actually 30-year career, and now she's rich as hell and very famous, of course. But they canceled her, and she actually got canceled because of that actual reason of 30 plus years of acting a certain image, and she was actually the complete opposite. So, which does it come out as a price to me? No, of course not. In your case, of course, it wouldn't be because you're not in the entertainment industry or the inner circle to know who's genuine and who's not. To find out that gap of 20-30% and the other 70% that are faking it.
Have you ever been, speaking of genuine or not, I know working as business, especially if you get close to people you are working with, can be a very risky thing to do. Is there or was there ever a time that you were taken advantage of, or you began to realize that people were lying to you, lying to your face? Maybe because I heard there's a lot of nasty stories about that too between business partners. I know my dad is a businessman and he's definitely had a lot of those experiences. So if you have any, I'd be very, very willing to hear that out.
Business partners. I mean, I've had multiple business partners in mainly in different professions, of course, in different businesses. Let me see. As far as like bad experiences, I would say the majority of them, to answer your question the right way, the majority of them have been like 90% failures.
Wow.
Business partnerships, and this is something that you'll actually learn in business, especially hopefully I become one of your mentors. You will learn, and it's actually very important for you to, especially if you're trying to be an entrepreneur. And I just actually had one very recently at the beginning of this year with two potential people that I was actually going to mentor and bring as potential partners. Very small percentage, but they actually had to work to get that certain specific percentages. And that's a whole different topic. I talked about it very limited list, but I'll go very later on, talk about more thoroughly. Well, anyways, the main point of partners, 80-90% of partnerships will fail. And the reason they will fail is for normally multiple reasons, at least in my case, and the most common ones are money greed. I don't know if you follow sports, but a quarterback, everybody's trying to be the CEO. Normally, when partnerships start, everybody normally talks, especially trying to build a corporation or the business. Everybody's always assuming to be, this is my role, this is what I'm good at, or they normally try to be equal. But once it starts building traction or it starts building things like that, everybody, sooner or later, that's where you get greedy. And somebody's either going to do multiple things that are bad for the business. It's either they want to be the main one, it's no longer equal partners. So they want to be the main person, or even worse, they still want the title, position, and the perks, in this case, the profits, the limelight of like, I own this company, equal or whatever, but they don't want to put in the work. Because now they start seeing the progression and they're like, oh, now I just sit back. And they assume that the company's already big enough to the point where like, well, I don't have to do nothing, now we'll just hire people. And I'm like, no. Companies, normally, even the big ones, they still got to continue, especially the public ones, where you have to now answer to your investors. So companies, there is no company, unless you're your own boss and your own company, like a mom and pop's company, where you could sit back and kind of like be like, I won't go into work today and things like that. But that's normally not a company. Normally you're just your own boss, but you still got to show up to work. But if you own a company that normally you're looking to, especially a public company, that you actually have to respond to your investors to make money from profit, you cannot step back anytime. Either you have the right management to continue to do it while you're vacating, or if you don't have the right management, you have to continue to work your 10, 12, 16 hours a day. Otherwise, that company is going to fold. You can never go into cruise control. So anyways, back to the example, partnerships, those are normally some of the two main reasons, the reason they fail. There's always one that kind of like, I don't want to work no more, kind of like put in the actual leg, continue the actual work that they need to do to execute, or they get greedy because they want to be the main person. And then pretty much it's greed. So they're like, I think I should be making more and things like that, or they lie on the books. They're like, they start stealing money, they lie on the books, and before you know it, sooner or later things are gonna find out. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
So
God always makes sure of it.
Exactly. So when things happen, that's when partnerships fail. So in my case, I'll give you an example. I'm just going. I don't want to go exactly on how many partnerships I've had. I think I've had easily between 8 and 10 partnerships on different businesses. You know how many I officially had successful?
I'm gonna guess very, very, very few.
Guess how many out of those? Let's say out of 8.
2.
1.5 to 2.
The
reason that 1.5 is because that 1/2 right now is currently where we're at right now.
Ah, okay.
So
You're
that
still
one
seeing
is
it out.
that one is still at potentially it's still going good. You know what I mean? But out of 8, and you could say 2 that are ones in progression, I've had 7 failures.
Wow.
Here's the key thing on the reason that's actually very important for you to know this next thing. Most people, especially if you're trying to elevate in this case, wealth, you could be rich, and you could pretty much be rich on doing your own thing, especially on a specific industry or niche. You could become rich. And nowadays with inflation, rich is normally, I would say, 3 to 5 million, especially at the way inflation is going, which is very bad. 10 million is normally to be a multimillionaire. In 5 years, $10 million will probably not mean much unless you actually invest it, of course, and you have passive income. But if you actually just have $10 million in the next 5 years, especially if you live in a good neighborhood and a lifestyle to maintain that house and your lifestyle of traveling, 10 million goes like this. You know what I mean? So the reason I bring that up is, there goes my ADHD. So anyways, the partnerships. Back to the partnerships. The main important thing is, most people, when they actually have failures in partnerships, they think it's like, I already got screwed. I've had too many failures with partnerships. I want no more partners. Let me ask you this question. Do you think it's better for you to just do it on your own? Or do you continue to look for partners? Or you just close the whole door on ever doing partnerships?
Me personally, I don't know, because I do know how risky partners can be, especially if you have a deeper relationship other than just being business partners. But I think that you can get farther ahead if both of you have the morals. So if you have a partner, if in a perfect world where you or the partner is not going to take advantage of the other, I think you can definitely succeed in a faster.
Well, that's the hard part, finding that.
Exactly, it's like it's really 1 out of a million, because everybody.
It's not really like 3 to 5% out of 100. Meaning that if you got to go through 97, 98 partners that are going to scam you in some way or another, which is normally a lot of money and a lot of time that you're going to be losing, which is actually not very motivating. But the trick is, the reason I actually asked that question, if you're looking to become wealthy, not saying that I'm wealthy yet, but I learned that from my mentors. My current mentors right now, they're actually very wealthy. The number one thing that, which is kind of like hard to believe, if you got taken advantage by a partner, move on to the next and give another partner a chance.
Oh, just replace it.
You just have to learn to prevent certain things for you to be more discreet, to be like, okay, learn from this mistake. Now the next partnership that I do, I gotta prevent from that happening again and again. But if you're looking to become wealthy, and if you think it's, even if you have a group management that that you just delegate to them, you will not become wealthy. Wealthy, you need partnerships. They could be partnerships and collaborations, silent partners, partners with major investments where you have control on the oversight of the things, and they're just capital partners, things like that. But you need partnerships to grow on whatever you are to the next level. So in our case, kind of like at Klerifai. Right now at Klerifai, I'm 100% owner of it. Meaning that so far being that we're just starting it off. Right now I have officially, I would say, probably like 4 people with deep pockets that they would pretty much, 2 of them actually out of the 4 have already told me they're willing to invest. But a lot of times when you invest money, you kind of like lose control. You either lose control, unless they're silent partners, you either lose control, or a lot of times they want to put their input. So when they put their input, your vision is going to change, because now you're giving them, because they gave you money, you have to be like, oh, I want to put this input on these certain things have to be done this way, or you need to do these things because I'm cutting you out a check. So am I going to accept money and allow partners? Of course. But right now that it's growing, it has to be built and take off with the vision that I have. Later on, when I'm looking to take it to the next level, either by needing more funding, one, or need more connections on certain things where these people with these more finances have, because a lot of people with deep finances, with deep pockets, they normally have connections in many different things, either on finance, connections, in different industries. So whenever we need those other connections, then is when I'll go ahead and start having those meetings with like, okay, now I need you and we need to connect to take the company to the next level. But if you think kind of like, I'm not going to do it anymore because I've already been burned by 6, 7 other partners, which normally that's the way you would think, because you're like, I got screwed and I lost a lot of money and a lot of my time. So you're not going to be very motivated to look for new partners. But in entrepreneurship, you got to forget about those and continue to go and go and go. Because if you think that you're going to grow wealthy with having that mindset of like, I no longer want partners, or I want somebody but kind of like to report for me, those are not really partners. Those are normally collaborators. But equal partners, it doesn't have to be also equal. They could be 5, 10% partners. But you got to continue to be, if you want to take your branding to the next company. Like in your case, public speaking, I don't want to say specifically certain names on kind of like the ones we talked about. But in your case, one of the main controversial topics was he was getting donations by people with deep pockets.
Oh, I know who we're talking about. Yeah.
So there's conspiracies that he didn't want to take that money. So once again, kind of like what I talked about like 30, 40 minutes ago, if he didn't agree with those point of views, it's not, he has major pros and cons, because these people with a lot of money,
they'll have you replaced in an instant.
Exactly.
Bye, like that. So, we saw how it happened to him.
So you kind of like have to be, that's where it gets kind of like on the dark side in the politics, you know what I mean? So you kind of like have to be in between, and you could be very successful as well, but the moment you actually don't do the cutthroat things, you could be successful, but it might be the high level, I'm talking about wealth not even in the billions, actually specifically the billions. Those people that are in the wealth of the billions, even though most of the general public doesn't know, they have a deep cutthroat mind. And most people might not see it, but to kind of have that type of wealth, you kind of like got to have that mentality. And a lot of times you might have done certain things that you got to have that mindset like, I don't care. It's hard to believe, but
they all have that face. Every successful person, you know, they have that face like they know something that we don't. That's what I know.
Right now, I don't know exactly how many billionaires there are. Right now, there's a lot of billionaires coming up like that quickly because they build up one company, goes public, or goes like that, and they become billionaires. But out of all those billionaires, I'm assuming they think there's like 2,000, if I'm not mistaken, around there, or 700. One of the two, 700 or 2,000. Out of those 700, 2,000, those levels of mentality, so the way they think, and what I mean by think, I'm talking about their morals. That's kind of like the main thing. Their morals, people, when they see them on the public image side, they might think, oh, like, he's very nice. That person will never do this. It's
never say never.
It's very
That's what
different.
I learned.
So if you don't kind of like have that mentality, you could have success, but $1 billion status or even 500 million and up, it's kind of like that type of thing. Certain times I'm like, maybe I should kind of like think like that or in a way a little bit. But until I get to that situation, I don't know yet. You know what I mean? I'm saying right now because I'm not in that situation. It's like a lot of girls, I'll give the girls an example. It's kind of like a lot of girls a lot of times say, I would never do that. Even if you give me all the money and think blah, blah, blah. It's saying because they know it doesn't happen. But if you put that money right in front of their face, 3 feet away or 1 foot away, it's very different when you make a decision. Does that make sense?
Exactly. Like you don't, what is this? I made up this saying the other day. I was like, you don't have the right to say you never do it if you've never been in that situation where you had the choice to do it. Because there's a difference between being morally placed in a way that you would not do something and just not doing it because you don't have the access to it. That's exactly what you said.
A lot of people give those examples because they know two things. One, it's not in front of them. And also the other one, they know, most likely they'll never have that opportunity. So it's easy for them to say, if I had that opportunity or if I got that offer, I would not do it. Most likely you'll never get it, but it's easier for you to say, even if I did, I would do it. Of course, you're going to say that because most likely you don't have that opportunity. It's the same thing, another very controversial one, which actually very, very funny thing. We were supposed to do today 2 topics, 2 different podcasts. Right now our topics, for some reason, it's like we've just been talking and we're pretty much already 20 minutes into our second podcast time frame. So most likely that second one, we're just going to go do a whole different day. But this other topic that I was about to kind of like say, it could pretty much, just this specific topic could pretty much do 2-3 hours. Another one would pretty much be, once again, the perks of the industry. A lot of times people say, do you date models? Why don't you date models? And things like that. So you get a lot of pros and cons with it. And a lot of times, most of the general public, especially on social media, they are like, especially the haters, they're like, she's just, in this case, let's say for a guy, she's just with you either for the money or for your connections. And most people that do the hating, either on finance, it's normally people on finance that normally don't have money, so they're just hating on the people that have money. Or in this case, on the status of, let's say, somebody dating somebody that's good looking. A lot of time, and one of the 2 people is not good looking, they always, the first thing they're going to get attacked on is like, she's just with you for the money.
Exactly,
especially if you're older and you're not good looking. The first thing that you're going to get attacked on is she's just with you for the money. So that one, I could pretty much go on for days. And a lot of times people are going to hit that topic of like, she's using you and things like that. But most people, just like the money's right in front of you, a lot of times, most of these people saying that, if they had the opportunity to date somebody either that had a lot of money or was good looking, they would jump on it. The reason they hate is because they don't have the opportunity.
They don't have access to it.
Exactly.
Yep.
So if they actually had, like, let's say somebody's average looking and doesn't have any of the 2, doesn't have the finance or the connections, but let's say a 9 or a 10 above their actual, the way they look. Because normally everything matches for a certain way, you know what I mean? So let's say they don't have nothing going for themselves, finances or looks. But let's say they get a good looking person, kind of like, let's go ahead and date or whatever. You're going to tell me that person's going to reject it?
No.
Of course not.
Yeah.
But they will say, of course, I'm not like that type of person. I'm like, yeah, you just
Pride.
say that because you don't have that opportunity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the reason that we could that be a very specific topic, because I could pretty much put some names into certain a bunch of people where it could pretty much get very spicy and kind of like very kind of like connecting the dots, including myself. But a lot of times it's a very controversial because you're gonna get a bunch of negativity on it, like
Yeah.
she's just with you for your money and for your connections. There's a bunch of celebrities right now out there that pretty much you could easily Google them, and their comments are normally like in the thousands. They're just using it to their advantage because the engagement and the algorithm is like, and they get
Yeah.
millions of views because they're getting attacked. But they have those opportunities because of two reasons: either they have money or they have the connections. When you have connections, and I'm talking about legit connections. Now with social media, everybody's claiming that they have connections. 90% of the people on social media with putting on their captions, entrepreneur, business owner, CEO, is like anybody could do that. I could create 10
Yeah.
profiles and put CEO and
Exactly.
it means nothing. But people with actual connections, normally in life, let me actually ask you this question. What do you think is more wealth or power? In this case, power is leverage.
Gosh.
What's more, power or leverage or finance?
I would say power, because if you walk into a room and you have that look, or you talk in a way that people look your direction and they want to hear what you got to say, I feel like that's going to get you money in the meantime. Whereas you could be, it's like being smart but not knowing how to talk. If you know everything but you don't know how to deliver your message, then who's going to listen to you? You're useless. Rather, if you, compared to if you may not know as much but you know how to talk, people are going to listen. And with traction comes money. We see that with social media all the time. If you are able to grab attention, that's your currency. So I would definitely say I would want power and influence over money, because I believe that if you know how to execute influence in a good way, the money's going to come along with it. So,
Let me give you an analogy and factual on two sides. Actually, your answer is right. And a lot of people might say money is more important than leverage. In this case, connections, your net worth, your network, I mean, your network. The reason leverage and connections, or who do you know, your resources, they're more important than money. I'll give you an example on one side, on the politicians. Politicians, when they go into office, normally the majority of the salaries of these politicians, regardless of whether they're governors, senators, mayors, and things like that, or even the president, they're not that high. They're normally like 150 up to 300,000. Some of them might even be in the $500,000 after they've been there 5-10 years. So technically it's good wealth, but it's not rich wealth. If you look at all you could Google them because it's public information, unless it's not like on the books. But if you Google the majority of the people in politics, they're all rich. They're not rich when they got into the politics, but once you're a politician, they become millionaires within 2, 3, 5 years. Do you think it's because of the salaries of their public servant? Because normally they're public servants to the people, you know what I mean? Because that's the government. So they're not rich because their salaries of whatever they are. They're rich because of the investments. And how do they get those investments? Because they have control, connections, in this case, leverage.
by being worthy to invest in also,
Exactly.
I believe.
Because they make the bills, the propositions, they pass the laws. So let's say a big multi-billion-dollar company needs a certain law or certain things to go through. They will either get the information before it happens, or that's a whole different topic. Once again, very. So if they,
But I think this is something that people need to know, because people think everything is black and white nowadays.
Yeah.
They don't see everything that's going on underneath, and once you start to see it, you can't unsee it. That's what I've heard. I don't know if that's your experience as well.
Yeah, that's the reason I'm kind of like saying your network is your leverage is more important than money. Money will come like that very quickly once you have a network. In this case, your leverage. So that's a perfect example. Politics, they become rich, but they become rich off their network, which is their leverage. That's the reason it's more important. And then now let's put it into the entertainment industry, which is the reason I actually brought it up on the topic. A lot of times they're like, how come certain people date and they're better looking or they're younger and things like that, and the general public kind of like hates on it? They're like, I'll give you another analogy on the people, the reason it's more important than money. If you're rich, I've had a lot of people that are rich that have had kids that they try to kind of be like, put them on a specific show or cast them or blow them up. Kind of, not even blow them up, kind of like put them in there and I'll pay you. And I'm talking about like people with money. And people with money, they can't pull that string, even if you put in money. Meaning that the connection that you have would get that person in there. Like everybody says, everybody has a price, right?
Yeah.
If you have a certain amount of money, you're gonna have to outbid more and more money. Otherwise, it's not gonna be cheap. But people with money, they're like, I'll just give you an example of it. I'll give you $1 million if you put my daughter or my son into this brand or in this commercial or in this movie. If the person that has leverage already, most likely that a lot of times that person's gonna have money.
Yeah.
So if that person's worth $5 and $10 million, $1 million is nothing. It's 10% of their wealth. But they're gonna want, if they're gonna actually pull strings and be like, okay, I'm gonna put your daughter or your son into this person because of my connection, that I could actually greenlight it, it's gonna cost you minimally $2 to $3 million, at least 30% of my wealth. And if you have 50 million, it better be 5 or 10 million. So it keeps on going higher and higher, as you can see. So the leverage is more than a person with money. Otherwise, everybody with money would put their person that they want into the entertainment industry to be famous. And a lot of them try to, and they don't. They don't have that pull. They might be able to kind of like pull some strings, but as far as like guaranteed to put a person in a certain specific either show or make them famous like that, it doesn't happen. It normally happens only in nepotism, which is normally like kids of somebody that's already famous. That's a whole different thing. Because they're rich, but they're also famous on the entertainment industry. That's nepotism. But if you're just rich and you're not in the entertainment industry, even your money can't buy somebody into that. Unless you're like a billionaire. If you're giving somebody $10, $20 million, then that's a whole different thing. But most people are not going to do that.
Exactly.
So once again, moral of the topic, leverage, connections, your network is more important than money. And once again, once it comes down into dating below your means, kind of like, let's say you're dating a better looking girl, like in my case, you're dating a better looking girl, or you have access to certain people that are younger and better looking than you, it comes into that of like your network. Why? Because you could do certain things for certain people, and they're like, that builds attraction. And a lot of times the girls also going to get attacked because they're like, or you're just using him, you're just with him for this money or for his connections. And that's pretty much a whole separate thing. That's more like off camera to see if what that person's really all about. There's a lot of relationships that are pretty much transactional, which is 100% that, which kind of like, I'll date you, but it's kind of like you get what I want and I get what I want, both parties. And then there's ones that are non-transactional and it's actually non-business and they have a relationship, but most of the general public will pretty much rip them apart because they're like, she's half your age or she's 10 years younger than you and she could pretty much have anybody she wants. Yeah, but if she wants somebody with connections or leverage, it all comes down to entrepreneur. A lot of times looks, a lot of times charisma, or a lot of times what you have going for yourself is an attraction besides your looks. And I don't want to give an example on that one, but I was going to give you, I'll give an analogy on non-entertainment industry. In my case, when I judge a girl, I judge a girl very differently on the entertainment industry compared to girls on the non-entertainment industry. And what I mean by that, which is kind of like hard to believe, there might be a girl that's a 6 or a 7 looks-wise on the non-entertainment industry, but she might be a 10 or an 11 to me on attraction on I would date her or even marry this person. Why? What's going to make the other 3 to 4%? It's going to be personality, what she has going for herself, respect, family things, values. So that other 3 to 4%, it's on that.
Because you're probably not, you work with models for a living.
Yeah,
So you get pretty all over the place.
But
So,
my
that's
friend, but my
important.
friends that I talk to that are not in the entertainment industry, they're like, "Well, why are you dating a 6 on the non-entertainment industry when you could be dating a 10?" And then I'll give you another analogy of the way it's gonna make sense on what I just told you. I could date a 9 or a 10, but I'm not saying most. Actually, I would say the most. Most girls that are pretty, they really don't have nothing going for themselves. And what I mean by that, it's kind of like if you do a conversation with them, they don't know how to hold a conversation because normally all they're talking about is me, 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 me. It's all about me. Selfies, social media. You go to a place with them, all they're doing is this. So you're going with them on multiple places, and all they're doing is social media. So technically, you're dating this person, but they're always on their cell phone. So that's not a relationship, right? That's more of a transactional once again. But if you're trying to be on a serious relationship and that person is kind of like always ignoring you, so the reason those key things I mean up, that's a 10, a 9 or a 10 on looks. But she's lowering her whole thing because she has nothing going for herself. She doesn't hold up conversation. If she wants kids, most likely she's like, of course not. If she respects people, not really. It's all about me. Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like she's hot and she has looks, which is good for a self-esteem. Like, oh, I'm dating this hot girl. But if you're trying to have a very serious relationship, or you're pretty much kind of like with this person for a large portion of your life, or if not the rest of your life, if they don't have that other values, why would you want that person unless it's just a lust relationship, sexual relationship, same thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like tricky where people are like, how come you're dating a 6 when you could be dating a 10? Why? Because I'd rather have a conversation and somebody that's respectful compared to a person that's just a 9 or a 10. Would I want, of course, just a relationship with a 9 or a 10? Yes, but that's kind of like nothing serious. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That's why it's better to have a relationship with a 6 or 7. If you get a 10 with a person that has the other ones, they're out there, but they are like 1 out of like 1,000. I think you could be hit by lightning if you find them. They are out there, and then I've been in this industry for 15 years. You know how many I've come across for that are like 9 or 10 looks and have everything that I just mentioned? 3.
3.
I know for a fact. 3. I could even name them. I won't name them because they know who they are. But 3, and I've worked with thousands of girls. And
Wow.
it's only been 3 where I'm like, and these 3, here's the funny part. The boyfriends that they have, they don't have any of the 2 things that I just mentioned. They're not good looking and they're not rich. And
You know what?
And they're 9 and 10s, meaning like they could have anybody they want on looks and money, and they're like 9 and 10s, and they're dating guys that are normally like a 7 at most. And I'm talking about on looks and even in life, because they have like actually not even great jobs, like good jobs, but not great. So you would think they would make up for it, their other 8, 9, and 10 to raise up their value besides their looks. But they have average jobs, kind of like not even great salaries, like, and they're with them. They're actually been married for like between 3 to 5 years, and they're still like loyal and faithful, and like, which is kind of like that. That's the reason it's 3 out of thousands of girls.
Well, you know, the reason why I do know a lot of attractive girls actually settle for less attractive men is because similar to when you settle down, I mean, when you get together with someone who all they care about is their attractiveness, especially if it is a male, they tend to be a little bit more possessive. And not only that, but prettier girls, they're very used to being traumatized or mistreated. You know, it's either one or the other. It's either the world loves you and worships you, or they treat you terribly. So when someone comes along and does, you know, the bare minimum, or they do more than the bare minimum, they may not look great, they may not be the richest person, but they'll settle with this person because they've been so traumatized through other relationships or through other friendships that when somebody treats them like human for once, you know, it's all they could ask for. You know, pretty girls, I noticed that they don't ask for much. They really don't. Like the truly pretty ones, like you described from the inside out, they don't ask for a super rich guy. They don't ask for a super handsome guy. They'll settle with anything because most of them already have that within themselves. It goes the same for men as well. So when a man is truly confident within himself, if he's good in his finances, he's not looking for someone to fill that hole for him. So that's why they will go and be with someone who's maybe not on their level. And a lot of people will look at that relationship from the outside in and just be confused by it. But another one of the things I did want to ask you on that note, of only meeting 3 people, 3 girls like that, what is the worst experience you've had working with a model? If you can talk about that, or working with anyone in your business. Was there multiple experiences where you felt that you were just being disrespected? Because there is this kind of trope that goes around that models think they're all this, and, you know, especially the ones that aren't even the model to begin with. They're just trying to be. I mean, I know you touched a little bit on this a couple weeks ago when we did that shoot. So, I mean, what was some of the experiences you
I wouldn't
had?
say, once again, if I was to say the specific, if you were to ask me kind of like the worst experience, I can't talk about it, not even thoroughly, because
They would know who they are?
it would be, no, actually, it would be more of like, it would, the ratings and viral would go like that, but
Oh.
it wouldn't be good because it's very kind of like controversial and very bad.
Then let me ask you this. What is your bingo moment? So when you are interviewing someone, what is the moment, or what can they say, what can they do that's going to make you go like, this is, I want to work with this person because I know they're going to be good for my business? Is there...
Well, I could tell you, it's kind of like hard for people to believe to answer that question. Good thing you actually asked that question. When I interview, kind of like, you could use a perfect example, but in your case, I told you, I didn't look at you as a model. I looked at you, you're pretty, but you have the sky's the limits using your beauty for so much more than just modeling. Whenever I do interviews, Zoom calls, or even in-person test shoots with models, I kind of like already have a little head start either through the DMs or phone calls. Normally nowadays, models, girls, new generation, they don't like talking on the phone. Normally everything's DM. So even through the DM, you could kind of like tell somebody's personality, the way they say certain things or they ask certain questions. But anyways, when I get them in person or even through a Zoom where I could actually see their expression on the way they talk and things like that. And a lot of times I interview models, but in a non-conventional way. I don't interview where you're like, kind of like, let's say right now with meeting you for the first time as a model and you're trying to work with me. Because when I interview you as a conventional format, the model, just like when you're going to try to get a job at a 9-to-5 job, you're always going to prepare yourself to answer the right questions because you want to get hired. In this case, same thing as a model. If you want, in this case, either I'm doing a casting for something or I work with a certain brand or with a certain photographer or a certain agency, technically you want something from me. In this case, my connections, something that I could do for you. So you're going to prepare yourself to say the right questions. It could be from like, I've only worked with these photographers, I'm determined, I'm hardworking. You know how many models tell me that? All of them. It's kind of like a broken record. And when we ask the question, what separates you from the other ones? They all say the same thing. Why? Because it's a very conventional answer. It's a question that they're going to be like, I'm hardworking, I'm determined, I stand out, and blah, blah, blah. Every time I hear that, I'm like, no, you're lying. That's like automatically. When we actually ask what makes you unique and things like that, and you normally say those same questions, you prepare yourself to say those questions. Why? Because you want to get hired or casted. So the way I do it, like I mentioned, I do it non-conventional. I normally let the model start shooting, and I start asking the questions, but I don't do it in a way like very conventional of asking the question like if it's an interview. I say it spontaneously, which I did that with you as well, if you notice. I asked you you could say I interviewed you, but on the go. The reason I do that is because girls or even male models, when you ask them like that, they're not prepared, or they don't assume that I'm actually already interviewing them. So they're most of the time, I'm not saying the smart ones actually know I'm already interviewing them, so they're ahead of that. But the majority of them are not. They actually answer the questions that I actually ask them, and they're more genuine because they don't know I'm actually interviewing them. So I get better answers like that. And the reason I'm bringing that example is because when they give me better answers, kind of like what they're all about, it shows me very quickly like, no, this person's not good to work with. She's hard to work with. She's all about herself. Because normally, if to elevate in the entertainment industry, pretty much and in general in life also, everything, especially the bigger brands and the agencies, everything's all about money and budgets and teams. The bigger you do of a project, there's going to be more teams, and those teams have major budgets that's assigned to those specific things. So time is money. And if you're hard to work with, they're not going to want to work with you. I'm not saying certain people are hard to work with and they'll still work with them. Yes. But that's most likely when you're already like famous. When you're famous, companies and brands will still put up with it because you're already like, I could mention some names, but once again, I don't want to out these celebrities.
We don't want to get messy.
But there's certain artists, models that are hard to work with, but they're famous. They'll still put up with it because they have a major following or big traction. But that's where people make confusion, especially aspiring models. They're like, well, she's like that. She's a diva and she's demanding. I'm like, now you're overvaluing yourself. There's always levels, and a lot of models confuse that. You could be a certain way and act a certain way when you're at a certain plateau. But if you're not there yet, who are you? What makes you think that they should put up with that?
Yeah.
And if they continue to do that, that's when you see the models. I've been a model for 3 to 5 years, and you ask them, what have you done? And they haven't done nothing. Ooh. They believe they've actually been model. Just because you're shooting with amateur photographers doesn't make you a model. Unless now you're on the OnlyFans model. With OnlyFans, you don't need to work with major agencies and brands, and you can make millions of dollars. But that has nothing to do. You kind of like have your own control, and you can make a lot of money, especially right now that it's booming. Nothing bad with that, but that's more on like that's more on the glamour modeling. You know what I mean? But on the mainstream modeling, you can't be that way because the inner circle is very small. You act a certain way, and you're trying to get to a certain level. Very quickly, it spreads out that this person's very hard to work with, and she might be a 9 or a 10, but if you have a bad negative attitude, you will not get much. You will pretty much not get far because of that thing. So you have to understand models, especially the younger they are, you have to kind of like humble yourself. Then if you want to pretty much be a diva or whatever, you pretty much have to be like rich and famous, where you could pretty much now control and be like, okay, I paid my dues, I'm here, and people could suck up to me, and I'm kind of like cold-blooded and I don't care, kind of like my way or the highway. But when you're trying to get a certain plateau and you don't have that leverage, you're always going to either never make it, or you're very slowly, you're limiting yourself to maximizing your potential because you're very negative. So most talent thing it's all about, because once again, social media blows up their ego like, oh my God, you're going to be great, you're successful, you're so beautiful. Or now all these fake magazines that you could pretty much pay to print or be on digital. And they're like, you were on this magazine and things like that, where the regular general public is like sucking up to them. So their ego blows up because of their engagement. But in the inner circle, technically, that means nothing. You know what I mean? Unless it's OnlyFans. OnlyFans, those people are normally the ones subscribing to your paywalls and things like that. But on mainstream, it's major agencies and brands. They could care less about, 1,000 people told me you're hot. I'm like, if the fashion designer or the brand or the agency doesn't like you, they could care less about your following. So
I think that's something a lot of people need to hear.
That's where models confuse, like, 1,000 people told me. I'm just giving you an example. It could be even 10,000 to 100,000. They're like, they say I'm hot, I'm going to be the big thing and things like that. Yeah, those are general people. Entertainment industry that normally has the leverage and the connections to actually do those things, they are not even close to the way the general public thinks. They are getting paid by either the agency or the brand. They need to actually have somebody ready to learn, know how to pose, ready to kind of like be, if that shoot's at 7 in the morning, they better be there by 6:30, wardrobe, stylist, you got to be like ready to go. And most people are not like that. They're not prepared, or they kind of like, they're big-headed. Why? Because, and they always give a lot of analogies like, this person made it and blah, 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 and she made it like this. A lot of times they don't want to invest in themselves. They're like, they say anybody that charges for shoots, anybody that charges for learning how to walk, how to pose is a scam because they didn't pay for it. The modeling industry and the entertainment industry is very diverse. And a lot of times they hear big, successful, high fashion models say, I made it and I didn't have to spend no money. That's a whole different level of a model. Compared to if you're a commercial, a lifestyle, a curve model, it's very different than those high fashion models, where a lot of times back in the day, a lot of the major agencies, what they did is, A lot of models say they invested in me. Yes and no. They invested because they didn't make you pay up front. But back in the day, they hardly do them. Like only like 5 or 10% of agencies do this nowadays. Back in the day, what they did is like model apartments, wardrobe, facials, hair and makeup, all the major expenses, very expensive, travel and lodging. The agency paid up for it up front, but they only did it with like A-list high fashion models because they know those models are pretty much already guaranteed that they're actually gonna go work for a major campaign.
Oh,
So those
wow.
jobs are normally like minimally 50,000, 100,000 and up. So it's kind of like even the record labels used to do that, and some of them still do that, where they give you an upfront, but they're documenting everything. So when you do get paid, you've seen movies now. It's social media. You could Google it. It's not gatekept now. You could Google it now. So when they get paid, okay, here's everything that we spent on you. Just because you didn't pay for it up front, you're paying for it, but now you owe us all that money.
Oh gosh, so they're in debt.
Yeah, but
Oh,
most models don't go
wow.
into that part on social media and be like, I had to pay that. So most general people, in this case, the aspiring models, they're like, she didn't pay for this and she didn't pay for that and she was successful and blah, blah, blah. So they got it wrong in two ways. They don't know that everything that was upfronted for them out of their pocket, that they had to pay it back when they started getting work. They have that part misinformed. And second, they're comparing themselves to an A-list high fashion model. Now, if you're
can't
doing
do that.
commercial curve influencer, I'm like, normally there's like you could be a model here and you could be a model here, the A-list model. You got so many things and you're comparing yourself to this one. So when a model says and goes like, if they're trying to charge you for photo shoots, if they're trying to charge you to learn how to pose, if they're trying to mentor you on who to work with and how to brand yourself and brand identity and all that, a lot of things that we offer. And it also gets a bad negativity because there's a lot of scam artists that and agencies and brands out there also that charge for this with the promise of getting you signed or discovering you, and they don't do that. So it's right, yes, and wrong. So that's where you have to kind of like do your research and find out which one's legit and which one's just a scam company. But do you need to invest in yourself to maximize your full potential? Yes. Who to do it with is the hard part. Just like YouTube, like I mentioned earlier, 90% of the people are scams. Same thing in the entertainment industry. 90% of these schools charging you to learn how to get a high quality portfolio, teaching you how to learn how to pose and walk, things like that. And they also promote, once you do all this and you pay for it, we're going to guarantee you with a major agency. That's where they're lying. Any agency or any brand that tells you pay $3,000, $5,000, $10,000, sometimes even $20,000, we're going to teach you how to walk. We're going to teach you how to pose. We're going to develop your portfolio high quality. So technically they did yes, 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 but they also promoted and guaranteed within that actual package, we're going to get you signed. That part is a scam. And a lot of models, when they hear that last part, that's when they start paying because they're like, everything's going to check. And when it comes down to like, we're going to get you signed, and that doesn't happen, too late. All that money got. So did they get perks on? I mean, not perks. Did they get something out of it? Yes. But the last part that was guaranteed was a scam part. So the whole transaction of the 5, 10, 20,000 was a scam because they didn't deliver on something they promised. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. That must be a bummer.
So,
But also for you, it must be a bummer because if you're also in this same industry, it's kind of like the one person ruins it for everybody mentality.
Correct.
So just because some other person or some other business scammed a model and model gave a bad review or models don't like that, it kind of like it. Everybody in that industry trying to do the business that you're doing, it's not as great for them because now they look bad even if they're really genuinely trying to get models to where they could be and more.
but you want to hear the funny part on that one? This is actually going to be, we're closing it out because we're actually already close to the 2 hours like nothing.
Wow.
You want to hear the funny part right now that you mentioned that?
Yep.
It might be bad or good for me to actually say this. Did you know that the more scam companies out there, in this case, kind of like ruining it for us? For us, in a way, that's good. You know why? Because that's what Klerifai is going to be for. It's going to be a tool community website that 90% of the people doing that are going to be vetted so people could actually know which 10% to work with and 90%. So the more scam companies out there doing these things, they will pretty much be on the website or be exposed to be like, this person charged me but didn't deliver. This person, this company, this, and this, and this. Does that all make sense?
More content for you guys, more people to
more
call
content,
out.
and also more tools that people are more aware of who to work with that are legit, which is normally like only 5-10%, and a whole 90%. We'll go way more podcasts, and even my situation, non-entertainment industry, because I'm also in real estate and different types of businesses, where I've also paid thousands of dollars for mentors, and I wouldn't say I'm getting scammed, but in a way kind of like similar to the analogy that I just gave in the entertainment industry. They told me it was going to be a certain way, and it's not. Am I getting still the value? Yes, but I'm having to invest more money from the way they promote it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'll give you an example very quickly because we need to kind of like finish, but we could do a bunch of podcasts. I'll give you an example. Right now, my mentor in real estate, the typical, like everybody hears, you need no money down, or you could invest $10,000-$20,000 and buy a house, blah, 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 blah. That's true, yes and no, now that I'm actually getting more involved. It's true only in super, very small markets like Arkansas, Ohio, kind of like those states. Very small states where normally houses are like 30, 50,000. Back in the day, like 10 years ago, they were like 10,000. When I went to Ohio in early 2000s, those houses were like $15,000. The houses are bad, but still, you're buying the dirt. So those are the houses normally that, once again, those people that are promoting mentors, they're saying you could buy a house with no money down or very minimal. It's true, but what they don't tell you, it's in the boonies. They don't tell you that because they want your $5, $10, $20,000 for mentorship. You only become aware of it once you're actually executing. So when you go into that, and unless you live into those small markets, you're going to get scammed. In my case, I live in California. I'm not in those markets. So technically, I would say I'm getting scammed. Luckily, in my case, I have the resources to still be able to adjust. But if I didn't, and I only had that $5, $10, $20,000, and now it's actually close to triple, I'd be screwed if I didn't have that because I would lose that money.
Yeah.
So it's right when all these mentors are saying you need no money now. What they fail to tell you is the little kind of like the little discrepancies. Because it is true, but in small market states and cities, and even in the middle states, or even more or less even the worst, the bigger states, that's not even close. You're gonna need major money, especially now with inflation. You're gonna need minimally $60,000 to $100,000 just to be able to make a transaction of a house. And that's knowing what to do with a mentor. If you don't know what you're doing, you're pretty much gonna lose your money. So once again, these mentors, 90% of them are scam artists. You just need to find out the 10% that are legit, and the 90% that are just gonna scam you very badly and just pray and take your money up like that. Once again, that's what Klerifai is gonna help. So the more scams out there is, I'm not saying it's a good thing, but for us, it's a great thing because that's what Klerifai is going to be all about.
And you know what? You know how I can tell that you guys aren't one of those scammers?
Because why would we put up a portal and a website, or you could say a community, where it's kind of like we're looking to bash ourselves. We cannot make a tool in a community on something that we would be doing ourselves. It will make no sense.
Of course. And another thing I just want to add right before we go, just to glaze you a little bit. Glazing, if you don't know what that means, that's just like to kind of like tell your viewers a little bit about Arthur. So he's a very perceptive guy. He calls things out, and that's why he's a very, very great guy to trust. That's one of the first things I actually noticed about him. He doesn't beat around the bush. And a lot of people in this industry, they will beat around the bush, like you said, so they can just take your money and run. He doesn't do that. So I highly suggest, if this is your first time ever coming across Klerifai, if you're thinking about it, if you're thinking about reading a bit more about it, definitely go to their website, check out their Instagram page, because I'm telling you, this guy knows exactly what he's doing. And Arthur, it was such a very great conversation we had today.
Thank you. Actually, looking forward to hopefully one of many to come in the future.
Hopefully, if he doesn't boot me out, guys, we'll see. We'll see after this one. But yes, absolutely.
Okay, hope everybody actually got some good information and knowledge on what Klerifai 1 is all about, and 2 on pretty much the vision of the 3 core visions that we actually run Klerifai through, and the up and coming projects and tools that we actually what the whole community network is going to be all about. Other than that, I hope everybody enjoyed it and be on the lookout for more. We'll go ahead and post her actual handle, of course, where you could actually go ahead and follow her. But you're going to be seeing a lot from her and overall, trust me.
All right, guys. Thank you for
Okay,
watching.
Thank you for watching.